Welcome everybody to November's Next Experience Academy. My name is Maria Gabriela Ochoa Perez Wechter, and I am joining y'all from Richmond, Virginia. I am an outbound product manager on the Next Experience productivity team. And with me, I have today my lovely guest.
Hi, everyone.
Who used to run this?
I did last year. Who's to say what's going to happen in 2024? So I'm Ashley Snyder. I'm also an outbound product manager here in the platform productivity team. A little bit about myself. I am the outbound PM for guided tours, but other products that fall underneath the admin experience umbrella, as well as knowledge management. So you may have seen me all over the place. Excited to be here today.
Thank you so much. Now, I don't know if you're very familiar with how academies go nowadays, but it's pretty much unchanged from when you were running them. So if we can go on to the next slide, look at our pretty faces. So let's do some quick housekeeping, everybody. Please use the Q&A for questions. This helps us gather the questions afterwards so I can post them on the event page. Where you signed up for this on the community site, you can also see a listing of all of our previous events where I have the Q&A from those events and the recording from those events. So that's why you should definitely use the Q&A for any questions you might have. And you can use the chat to comment, talk about what coffee you like, things like that. Have a riveting conversation on guided tours. Also, this session is being recorded and the slides and video will be made available afterwards. And these sessions are for you. We have Ashley's time for the next hour, so please ask questions, interact. We'll be in the product demoing this to you guys live. And actually, that last part is a lie. We will not be back next month. I forgot to change that part. We're going to be back in 2 months on January 17th at 11 a.m. Eastern. I might be trying to get out a little surprise kind of wrap up and posting it directly on the Next Experience Academy YouTube playlist. But for now, our next live session is going to be January 17th at 11 a.m. Eastern to kind of give us a break for the holidays. So thank you all so much. Let's enjoy the show. And Ashley, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much. Before I get started, our mandatory safe harbor notice for forward-looking statements. If you haven't seen this before, which I'm sure you have, I may be speaking to some forward-looking statements for some things that aren't released, or maybe some roadmap items for guided tours. These are subject to change, so please don't make any purchasing decisions based upon this academy today. For the most part, we are going to be sticking to what's out there in Vancouver, as well as what you can expect in like San Diego, Tokyo, and Utah as well. But do need to go ahead and cover that. So that's a good segue into our agenda, or what you're going to learn today. So today's session, we're not going to get too technical. We're not going to get too deep. I really do want to provide a good kind of refresher on guided tours. They've been out since, I want to say, Jakarta. I know they did gain a lot of steam in New York. We made a lot of enhancements, but they have been out for a few releases now. So I kind of wanted to refresh on them and some other products that we have for adoption services. I won't go too deep into them, but just to give everyone some context. And I did want to go into maybe some low-hanging fruits or some use cases for guided tours. If you do have use cases that you're using for guided tours that maybe I'm not covering, please throw them in the chat. I'd love to see what y'all are doing and kind of see what customers are doing as far as how they're using guided tours, so we can kind of build that into our product strategy a little bit more, but also just throwing it out there on the community too for some good use cases for other customers to kind of get that discussion started. So we're going to hop into an instance on Vancouver after that, and we're going to create a guided tour on the Service Operations Workspace landing page. And then I'm going to show you some guided tours I already created on the list page and the record page, just to save on time. And I do have a community article out there as well that will walk you through this, and I'll show you where to find that. So yeah, again, locate resources and reference material. So as I recap, I'll show you where you can find more guided tour information and some more reference material for this session today. All right, so let's go ahead and just talk about adoption services features. Adoption services is kind of an umbrella term that we have for a couple of different products that we have out there. So you may have seen guided setup for a few different products, like knowledge management has a guided setup, and so does conversational interfaces, so virtual agent and all the other kind of features that go along with that, that kind of walk you through that setup process and really kind of save your place and tell you where to go and what to do next. We have our onboarding modals. So if you upgraded to Next Experience, you've probably seen that modal appear when you logged in for the first time. That is an example of one. If you've been using Service Operations Workspace, they have one as well. And these are things that you can create for your users too. So it's not just limited to what we put out there. Today, we're going to be discussing guided tours, so that streamlined kind of on-screen guidance with all those call-outs, kind of walking your users through an interface or a process, giving them step-by-step kind of guidance. You can even force them to click on things and interact with the page or the form itself to kind of walk them through that. And then finally, Help Center. So Help Center has been out for a while. Previously, it was called embedded help if you are on core UI, or what's referred to as UI 16 in the past. So that's been out for a while. Help Center is our new name for it. When you're in Next Experience and when you're in Workspaces, it's just that help icon with the question mark that's been in the header for a while now. We are making enhancements to it, and that's where you'll find manual guided tours. So if you're not auto launching guided tours, Help Center is where you'll find where you can take the tour, and I'll show you all that as well. So that is an overview of the different features we have out. I'm not going to deep dive on all of them and when to use them. We actually have a great platform academy on that. So if you want to know when should I use onboarding modals versus guided tours, you can check out this academy session with our inbound PM. So the PM that's responsible for all the road mapping and everything, Mudit. He did a great session on this with Lisa Hohenstein, another counterpart of ours. So I have a QR code. And that's found on the community as well if you want to kind of get more of a primer on adoption services and when you should use them. So guided tours, really want to speak to kind of the value of guided tours. Why should you use them? When should you use them? Really kind of thinking about when you have employees at your company and you're trying to onboard a new interface like a workspace, or you're trying to onboard maybe a catalog item in your service portal or your employee center. Really, what is the value of walking them through that process? So a couple things to think about. At your company, depending on how large it is, you might have 1,000 users, 10,000, or 100,000. That's a lot of employees to really kind of onboard to a new interface or a new process or a new kind of request form, and kind of understand them to all know what they should do and get it right away, right? So a guided tour is really helpful for really training your users at scale, especially if you have a lot of employees. A portion of your employees are going to be agents, so those who are working on workspaces, or what we refer to as the classic environment forms and lists, so performing those tasks such as incidents and cases and problems. And you might even have outside vendors or contractors doing that work for you. So again, guided tours are another great way to train your in-house agents or your external contractors to navigate how your incident process should look or how your problem management process should look without them really kind of having to guess at it or refer to external like knowledge articles, some kind of external entity. You can just train them right away on how to go through that and what's expected in that form. But the majority of your users are going to be those end users, right, who are on Employee Center or another service portal interface. And they're really trying to go through and understand what's available to them. How can they find information in the knowledge base? How can they request things? How can they get help? Guided tours are a great way to really kind of show them when they log in for the first time, this is your employee center. This is where you go to get things. This is how you find things, and kind of walk them through that process. And then also too, you can launch guided tours on catalog items. So if you are launching a brand new catalog item, or let's say you've made a revision to a process and it impacts a catalog item, that's a really great candidate for guided tours as well. So all in all, guided tours can really reach all of your personas, whether it's internal agents, external contractors who are using your platform, or even your end users. So you can onboard them or show them how to use a new feature or how to train them on performing a task within ServiceNow without having to do more in like formal training or, rely on knowledge articles to kind of provide that step-by-step guidance. So what's included with guided tours? We have a couple of different things. So we do have a guided tour designer experience that's been out for a while. You'll see this in our demo. This is really where you go through and build your tour and you just drag and drop different call outs to different sections of the pages. You kind of determine what the triggers are. Should the user click on this, or should they just click next? Should they do a right click, and things like that. We do have dashboards for usage tracking, which I'll also cover here. So we have 2 different dashboards. And then the guidance is that step-by-step navigation. So as soon as a user is on an incident form or something like that, with a guided tour, you can auto launch that, or you can have manual launching. So that brings us down to our launch controls. You can disable tours if you need to. Let's say that the tour is no longer applicable and you no longer need it. You can just disable it. And then we also do have a guided tour API. So if you have a little bit more complex use cases for guided tours, let's say you need a guided tour to launch when a certain assignment group is chosen, or some kind of really specific thing on that form happens, you can use that guided tour API to trigger that guided tour as well. All right. So I think this is a really great section, or a section that I want to spend a little bit more focus on, since we are in Vancouver. These are some really great takeaway slides for reference. But where can you use guided tours? So, we did have some changes from the San Diego to the Vancouver release, and which are listed here. So in San Diego and Tokyo and Utah, with some patches and everything, we did support guided tours on what's called the classic environment. So classic environment are just those forms and lists that your users are used to using, with Next Experience turned on. It's also supported in what's called Core UI or UI 16. So whether you're using Next Experience UI or not, you can still use guided tours in these releases and previous releases, but I don't think we have any customers still on there. So when you get to looking at Employee Center and service portals, again, guided tours were supported in San Diego, Tokyo, Utah, Vancouver. So you can continue to use those guided tours. You shouldn't have really had any interruptions when you upgraded to San Diego with your guided tours. We do always recommend testing, but the big one is our configurable workspaces. So that's the big change that we made with Vancouver. So you can go in and start using guided tours with the configurable workspaces that we ship out of the box. Or if you're creating workspaces with App Engine Studio, we support that as well. You see that asterisk there, that interoperability with classic environment. That just means if you start a tour on like a guided or on a configurable workspace, and part of that process still needs to go into your classic environment list and form for some reason, you can continue the tour and kind of flow through those 2 interfaces. So that's what that means. I do have some more information on the different app shells that are supported here, which I'll get to in just a second. But just the big takeaway here is that you can now use guided tours on configurable workspaces.
Quick question. You were talking about interoperability between classic environment and workspaces. Does that include interoperability with service portals?
So there are some caveats there. You can't kind of jump from a portal to a workspace or vice versa. That is in the product documentation, kind of what that flow looks like and where you can use that.
Thank you.
So what's not supported right now as of Vancouver? The portal app shell. So I do want to just take a moment and kind of explain the differences there, because I know we're using the same word portal, right? We have service portal, we have employee center, and now this portal app shell that you have to start thinking about. So our service portal and employee center, those are still kind of those portal technologies that use AngularJS that we've had for many releases now, and we are still continuing to release enhancements for the Employee Center. The Portal App Shell is an app shell that does use the Next Experience UI framework, and there are some different templates that you can use in App Engine Studio for kind of in-house portals. They're not really end-user interface, end-user interfacing or enterprise-wide kind of portal solutions. We have a lot of information on that on the Center of Excellence site that we can link out. But if you are trying to create your own portal in UI Builder, or if you're using these templates in App Engine Studio, we do not support guided tours on that app shell currently. Other app shells. So other ones that we've created, like you'll see the catalog builder app shell. Guided tours aren't supported there, though I think that would make a really great in-house use case to walk users through using the catalog builder, especially if they've been using the old way for a long time. So I'm going to take that one back. I was thinking about that as I was building this slide. And then custom app shells. So not to get too pro code, too dev, you can go and create your own app shells and use them. And we have had partners and some really smart developers who have done this so far and have information out there. We don't support those at this moment either. So we do have some great product documentation on which app shells are supported and kind of some caveats on some features that aren't supported in those app shells. So you'll see in that product documentation, we don't support the kind of modal pop-up windows in Workspaces yet. So that is a limitation that you'll kind of have to work around if you're designing them. Those are roadmap items, but for Vancouver, that is a limitation. And we do have some other things out there. So just something to keep in mind when you are designing your guided tours, pull up that product documentation and keep it as reference so you kind of know what works and what doesn't work. All right, so how to get started. With guided tours, I would really just think about some kind of low-hanging fruits that you have out there. In my mind, I really kind of equate this to getting started with ATF or automated test framework. Of course, you really want to throw it on everything and get everything to use it because it's really great to have out there, but that's a really big task. That's a big chunk to really start using ATF on everything, especially on things that are more complex like change management. And it's really suggested to kind of take a look at easier suites like incident or maybe even problem, easier things that you can really start with and start learning how to use the tool and start deploying out to your users and getting that feedback rather than really tackling those really complex, large items first. So just think about some low-hanging fruits that you can use. So let's say that you might have some onboarding knowledge articles out there that really have step-by-step guidance. This could be a great candidate for a tour. Let's say you want to keep that article still, you still want to provide that step-by-step guidance. Well, you can link a tour in that knowledge article and say, hey, would you rather just take the tour version of this? Just throw the link in that knowledge article and it will launch the tour for that user. And I'll show y'all where to get that link in just a little bit. Onboarding users to portals and catalog items, especially if you're transitioning over from like Service Portal to Employee Center. The interface is similar, but things have moved around. It's been recategorized differently with taxonomies and topics. This is a really great candidate to get your users familiar with that Employee Center switch. Or even if you have some catalog items on there and you want to release some tours for, let's say that you've had incidents or questions where users are just kind of struggling on how to fill out this catalog item, that's a great candidate. And then of course, onboarding your agents to configurable workspaces. So whether you're swapping them over from the classic environment, or let's say you just have brand new agents in general and want to kind of give them the lay of the land, also a really great candidate to use a guided tour on. Again, if y'all have examples on what you've used guided tours on or what you're thinking about using guided tours on, please throw them in the chat. Love to get that discussion going and kind of having some kind of informal comments on this on the event, so other customers can kind of see how y'all are using guided tours and really start thinking about how they can start using them. All right, just a couple more slides here and then we'll get to the demo. So with guided tours, we do have a creation lifecycle, just some things that you should think about when you're wanting to release a guided tour out there, just to kind of help you not have to go back and reiterate. This does follow kind of like a classic development life cycle where you go in and you get your requirements for the tour, right? You kind of understand the purpose for the tour, who your audience is, and kind of the outcomes, what they should expect to kind of gain by the end of the tour. When you're planning this, you want to kind of take into account any kind of roles that need to see the tour, if there are any kind of views that these roles use, and kind of really capture all of those so you don't run into any surprises when you're testing the tour. And then just kind of creating a rough draft of an outline of the tour. If you want, I did for the one that we're going to build today, just so you can go in there and kind of get your rough draft in there, and then you can start refining it from there. So once you have those two things, you can create the tour. We do recommend doing it in sub-production, and you'll use a guided tour designer, and you can start adding the steps into the tour. I do want to mention, since we are on step 2, create tour, there's going to be use cases where guided tours are going to go into production, and then there's going to be use cases where they don't. Let's say that you have a training environment or a testing environment where you're creating incident records. This is a really great candidate for that tour just to live inside of sub-production. That way you don't have testing incidents and things like that in your production environment. So that's another thing to consider when you're planning your tour. Where should this really live? Just so we can kind of minimize any kind of demo data and things like that from getting into production. So once you go through, you're going to edit your tour. You're going to go and you're going to test the flow, test where your call outs are at. You're going to edit your step placement and kind of edit your wording. This is just all part of kind of building that tour from your draft all the way up to your final draft. And then you can start testing the tour as a user. So, make sure before you send it out to stakeholders or promote it to production or publish it, that you just go in as a user that the tour was built for and just do kind of a smoke test, make sure it works for them, make any refinements as necessary, and then share that tour out with other testers or any kind of stakeholders. Let's say you're doing an incident tour, maybe your service desk manager or other stakeholders want to test it as well. Send it to them so they can test it before it goes into production or where it needs to be. And then finally, you're going to publish the tour, let it go live. Start getting feedback about it. And this is where you go through those dashboards and start looking at the usage, kind of seeing if users are taking it, if they're completing it successfully, if it's failing or they're abandoning it for some reason, and then make those refinements as necessary. I will mention this lifecycle is in a training that we have on Now Learning called Train Users at Scale with Guided Tour Designer, which I'll promote at the end of this. So if you ever kind of want to go back and use this as reference or get more information on this lifecycle, that's a really great training to take. All right, so those dashboards, like I mentioned, you're not just done. You don't just release those tours and they're gone and you don't know what they're doing. We do have 2 great dashboards for you to use. So we do have an operational reporting one that's out of the box, so no additional licensing required. It uses reports and gives you an overview of kind of how your tour is doing as far as who's viewing it, are they getting through it, are they completing it, are they abandoning it, and I'll show you all that within the demo. And then we do have a more advanced one that does use that performance analytics or platform analytics licensing, where you can kind of see the trends into those that data. And you can go in and do it by breakdowns as well. So if you want to see how just your workspace tours are doing, you can use those breakdowns and portals and things like that. So you can get a little bit more granular with that information. Okay, so we do have the demo coming up. I do want to pause for questions before we jump into that. I do see we had a couple come up here in the Q&A. So let me just take a moment and kind of read through what we got in the order that we got them. So if a tour can live in sub-prod, does that mean tours are captured in update sets? Yes, you can absolutely capture a tour in an update set. I recommend with any kind of development, if you are planning on moving environments, go ahead and update, open that update set before you even start building your tour and capturing that information. It really depends on where the tour is going to live. Like if it's in dev, you may not want to have it an update set. It might be a good idea just to back up your work, of course. But if you are planning on promoting it, then go ahead and just open that update set and capture it. Let's see, has the ability to format text improved? From San Diego. Let's see, you're trying to format text colors, etc. I'd like to get a little bit deeper on that. I know we have the colors. I have some formatting in my demo where I make words bold. I haven't tried the colorings yet. So that's a really good one for me to take offline and kind of get a list together of the formatting options that are available in callouts. And we can post that back to the event. Roles aside, practically speaking, who is best suited to create the tours? An SN admin or someone with training and OCM responsibility? I'd say, honestly, this would need to be someone who not only has access to the guided tour admin role, so we do have a role where we have two different roles. We have the guided tour admin role, and then there's the guided tour dashboard role that you can give users. But if you are planning on promoting them, that person would probably also have to have the ability to create things in update sets. So maybe kind of someone who's a citizen developer in that kind of role. So that really just kind of depends on your organization. I know some organizations, they allow like incident process owners to be a citizen developer and different process owners. So it doesn't specifically have to be an admin. I would say, it's great for an admin to definitely do that code review and that testing, especially if it's going to go into production, just to make sure everything is good. And just to make sure that, if there is an issue where records are being created, we can kind of have that conversation and decide where that should live. But for the most part, these are pretty low code. So there's really not any coding that has to be done. So, it is suitable for someone who kind of has the training on how to create them and can use update sets. All right. In old versions of guided tour, there was always an issue when moving the tour through tabs on a form. Are you aware of that issue in Vancouver? I know that we did have some defects out there. I'll have to kind of go back through our support knowledge base and see, what the workarounds are on that and how we cleared it up. So let me answer that one offline as well. I will mention for Workspaces, and we have it in that product documentation, that when you're opening like links to new tabs, you might have to be a little bit strategic in this to where the tour might end depending on where you're going to go. In my demo, I'll show you where I kind of create a new incident and it reloads in the same tab, so it keeps working. That's kind of a workspace specific thing, but I did want to mention that that's in the product docs and something to take into account. If you already have PA, is the guided tour PA reporting included or an additional fee? So if you're licensed for it, you should be able to go ahead and download that content pack and start using it. I will preface again, contact your account rep if you just want to make sure. But if you are licensed for it, those content packs should be available to you. How do you recommend clone down if the tour does not move to prod? Good question. So in that case, that would probably be something where you would need to exclude it from the clone and kind of do that manual configuration with your clone exclusions. You could always just re-import the import set or the update set back in. Probably the clone exclusions is going to be the best way to do that. Or you could always just promote it up to prod and just leave it disabled. That's kind of the automated test framework strategy that we use, where everything's in prod, but it doesn't run in prod. So you can just keep it disabled and that way it clones down. And then, run some script to re-enable those tours in your sub-prod after your clone. Let's see. I see there are existing guided tours. Can these be copied or modified, insert and stay? I would say go ahead and create new. The out-of-the-box tours, they've been around for a couple releases. They are mainly on the classic environment. You can definitely try to insert and stay, but I would really just now, since we're working with different interfaces and things have changed since those out-of-the-box tours came available, kind of use them as reference and guidance. But definitely more than welcome to try and copy them and insert and stay. Just keep in mind, you might have to make some revisions to them based upon your customizations that you've made. All right, so I think we got through a lot of the Q&A. I'm going to just switch my screen sharing here, and my instance probably did log me out. So let me go ahead and log back in. That's, I think on everyone's academy, whether it's this academy or other academies, there's always a pause for relogging back into your instance.
Honestly, I think something was wrong if that wasn't a thing that we had to do.
I know, right?
Just like on live coding happy hour, somebody always forgets to zoom in. Here, you always have to log back in. It's just something, always something.
Always. Okay. No. Can you see my Google Chrome screen?
Yes, we are good to go.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and just go through, we're going to go through a demo of creating a tour and kind of talk about some things. I did want to mention, if you're on the product docs, you're going to see, let me just show y'all real quick. So I'm on the product docs. One thing to note, if you want to use guided tours when Next Experience is turned on, make sure that the system property is enabled. I haven't come across an instance that it's not enabled on, but if you come across this, just double check and make sure that that's set to true. But what I wanted to mention in this Explore and Guided Tours article, in our new docs interface, which I'm really loving, not that old kind of green color, which is amazing. We do kind of list those areas that guided tours are either supported on or not, and we kind of break it down. So standard forms, classic environment, service portal, and then workspaces, right? So the different app shells. So your breadcrumb app shell, if you're using like the project workspace, or there's some other workspaces out there, they use a different app shell called the breadcrumb app shell, versus something like service operations workspace that uses the workspace app shell with all the multiple tabs and things like that. This ACE Unified Nav app shell. So that's some internal wording. ACE stands for Admin Center Experience, which I'm also the product manager for. So when you see ACE Unified Nav app shell, and I'm trying to get this wording a little bit more kind of not internal and user friendly, think about these pages. So your Admin Center homepage, or if you go into Application Manager, that's also what's considered an ACE experience page. So you can build tours on here if you want. I don't know if Application Manager is the best candidate, but maybe your admin homepage is a good one for onboarding new admins, and kind of telling them what they can do and what they can't do in here. I know a lot of organizations and ones that I've been part of really kind of, before you even get that admin role in Pride, you have to go through some kind of training. So that's a good one to kind of get your admins acclimated there. So we're just going to go ahead and start working on our guided tour. I'm just going to go over to the all menu, type in guided. Underneath guided tour designer, we will have some different options here where you can create a tour, see all of your guided tours. You can configure that auto launch. So if you want a tour to launch when someone navigates to a particular page for the first time, it will do that, or you can leave them as manual. This overview is that free reporting dashboard. That's where that launches to. And then if you have the advanced analytics, you'll see it too. But let's go ahead and jump into creating a tour. We'll get there.
Your instance names are so much better than mine. My Vancouver instance is Meow.
Y'all, we have these employee instances, and you know, they don't sleep like PDIs, but they're not the most performant instances out there. So cool. So we're going to go ahead and give this tour a name. So the name is going to be what your users see in the help menu. So make sure it's something that kind of makes sense to them. So we're just going to give this one Service Desk Agent Landing Page, and I am going to be copying and pasting for time's sake. And then this is where we select that tour type, right? So now we can go through on Vancouver and select Workspaces. So you do have options here with pasting the URL versus manual selection. I do mention some things in the community article that I put out there, you know, considerations on that. For this, we're just going to do manual selection, and we're just going to find the service operations workspace. You'll probably have to scroll through these. I've done this 1,000 times now, so I'm just going to select the home page, and then we're going to set it on the ITIL role. Again, it depending on your roles at your organization, whichever ones make sense for that. So we'll go ahead and create the tour, and this is going to launch us into that guided tour designer kind of interface, and it's going to pull up the page that we specified. So that home page. We'll just give it a second to load. I do recommend if you're an admin or whoever is creating the tour, kind of get this similar, make sure your view is similar to the users that you're creating it for. So on this, I did dump my admin user into some groups. You know, I'm not really in assignment groups. You may be in your organization, but kind of having a good testing user to create this with who can create update sets. So from here, just a few things. We're going to go ahead and create an introduction. And again, I'm going to do a lot of copying and pasting, so not the most riveting thing, but just so y'all can see for sake of time. Here are some of the formatting. So I wanted to make that bold. I can put strong in here, and I will definitely get a list of formatting that we can do here for everyone. And then here's where we start really looking at our call outs. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this one. I'm going to drag this one up here. And this is really where you kind of have to start playing around with how these look and making sure that The callouts don't really go in front of things or kind of cut off things. So it will suggest where the callout should be. Like I only have below here based upon where it sees where it's at. If I did it above, it's going to totally go off. So it did suggest that below was the best place for this. So I'm going to keep it there. And then on this action, there really isn't anything that a user can do here since I didn't place it right on the plus symbol. Again, it was going to kind of cut off some things, so I decided to move it over here. I'm just going to keep it on next button click and kind of refer to what the user can do. So skippable, that's really good. Let's say that you have conditional things on the form, some things that all users may not see, but some users may see, and you have it in that guided tour. So skippable just allows for the tour to continue and not fail when you have those kind of elements that may be pertinent to some users and may not be pertinent to others. And we're going to go ahead and save this. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through all these things here. So what I found in my testing is works really good when I put it on like this rich text kind of component here. That's always going to kind of be there. So the banner, that's a good example of conditional. The user can close this. So it may or may not always be there. So let's just go ahead and make sure that we mark it as skippable. And I will mention too, there is an update set with this tour on that community article. So I know I'm breezing through this for time, but I do walk through this on that community article and give kind of step-by-step instructions on what's going on and as to why. And while I'm doing this, if there's any questions coming in, just let me know and I can talk and do this at the same time.
So it looks like they have a form/page that has a drop-down list. And when they choose one of the options, it redirects them to another form. But when you do this in the guided tour builder, it wants to redirect out of the builder. Is there any way to work around that and get it to advance to the new page within the builder like it does with straightforward links?
I think that's one of those issues where you're going to a new page and the guided tours can't really start on that. I think that's going back to that previous question where we had kind of a defect or something on this in the past that I'll need to kind of go back to. All right. Awesome. Imagine if I were typing all this out by hand.
Oh my goodness.
You can also move this down too. That's another thing that I noticed, which was nice. All right, awesome. So we have this here. It's in the draft state. You can preview it from here. Let's just go ahead and publish it because I want to just show y'all, and we're getting low on time. Just want to show y'all how it looks. Another thing before I get out of the guided tour designer, here's that link to copy the tour to put into knowledge articles and other sources that you may have. If you just want to direct the user directly to that tour, or if you are sending this to stakeholders for testing, that's where you'll find that link. So we'll go ahead and publish this tour, and I'm going to get out of guided tour designer. I'm just going to go all the way back, kind of refresh for good measure. And then we're going to go into service operations workspace and give that a moment to load. So I didn't auto launch this one. It's still a manual process. Again, you can set that auto launch preference for that. I can actually show y'all real quick where you would do that before we launch. So configure auto launch. You're going to see all the lists. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We just go ahead, finish this up.
I was gonna say, so auto launch, it's gonna be by page because you can have multiple tours by your page URL. So that's how that's going to look. You can just go into it and you can decide which ones to auto launch. So of course I was playing around with this. I have kind of two, you can reorder them. So if you want one to launch after the other, you can do that, but that's how you would configure those auto launches.
I'm particularly interested in this question. Do image tags work in the guided tour? I pasted one in our chat if you wanted to just paste it and see if it worked.
Well, let's look. Let me get back to our chat here. Where is the image? Or in our chat?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can find it.
Just copy that whole thing. Let's see if that works. Please.
I am not seeing it.
Oh, you're not? On
Did you?
Mattermost?
Oh, and Mattermost. I thought you were posting it here.
Oh,
Can I go through this tour first before we start throwing things in there?
totally.
Okay. So this is where you'll find the tour on demand and help center. So you can see there's a tour here, and this is where your users will start launching it. So you can see it just walks them through everything. Again, you can get this is really high level, right? We're just clicking next on a bunch of stuff. You can definitely get a little bit more complex with this and walk the user through this. So service operations landing page is a really great candidate, right? Because it's a little bit different from what your agents are used to seeing. And this is really great just to walk them through what they can expect. Like I didn't know before I created this tour that this recently viewed section actually takes a lot of the stuff from the history. I had no idea. And as I was going kind of through it and building this, I found that out. But let's try and go through that and add that image tag in. Let's just see what happens.
It was a great idea to show the tour before I broke it.
It does work, promise. And then I'll kind of breeze through like the lists page and the record page too. All right, let's go ahead and edit with Designer. You can edit it while it's still published. You don't have to put it back in draft, but if you are, making a lot of revisions and going through and doing that testing, let's say that it's kind of maybe already in prod or something, or you just don't want people to launch it for a period of time, you can always put it back in draft. Let's see. Where do we want to put this? You want to try and put this in the intro?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I see right there. That's a good thing for me to track down. So I know onboarding modals can support images. So these things, let me see if that will pop up. These onboarding modals do support images and videos. That's probably the answer to that. But let me check with the team and see if maybe there's some formatting that you have to do, or if maybe it's like a roadmap item. Because I mean, we are able to support it in a different respects. So
Thank you for checking on that. Now we can go
yeah.
back to the list page.
Yeah, of course. That was fun. If y'all didn't see the image, it was just Forrest Gump waving, which is fun. I think that'd be a really great one for an intro. So for the list page, again, if you are onboarding those agents, this is a little bit different from what they're used to seeing. You can launch a tour on this page and walk them through it. So I did a couple of things here where, I'm getting them to interact with the page and, getting them to open this open incidents. You can actually set a tour to open on a specific list. There are parameters. If you click on the list page, I put those in that community article. So you don't have to be as granular as this, but since I was shipping this out to everyone, I just wanted to make sure it worked. But I did want to mention that. Here's where you can force them to interact and do things. Again, within reason and what we support. Copy URL kind of went over my call out, so I just hit next on that. Just kind of a decision I made as I was making this. But you can kind of see, you can really walk your user through a lot of different things on how to use the list page, what's available to them. Like when I was onboarding as an admin, like in 2016. Like it took me a little bit to understand what I could do on right clicking and sorting and filtering. So this is another great example of how you can really give your agents the information on what they can do in like column headers and different rows and things that they may not have known or may have taken them just a little bit to find out. Tabbing through pages and things like that. And then, of course, the My List page, if you want to kind of tell them what they can do here and how they should do it. Again, like I mentioned, those modals aren't supported yet, but as soon as they are, that would be a great candidate to kind of do a tour on. Awesome. And then you can kind of tell your users when they're done with the tour, go ahead and revisit this again by hitting the Help Center icon, kind of give them that call to action on how to do that. And I only got 10 minutes left. We're going to breeze through this record one. So on the record page, on like creating something like a new incident, you can put a tour on that. and kind of walk your users through what's available, like your admin has configured the fields here, how to jump to different sections on the form, what they can do. And then this is where that training really comes in, right? Getting your users to create that incident, not in prod, and walking them through that whole process. I don't think I'll go through all of this one because we are getting low on time, but we'll be shipping it out in an update set. But you can even drag call outs and stuff over here to Agent Assist and kind of just walk them through that whole form itself. Awesome. So let me go ahead and stop sharing here. We're going to just jump to some of the slides because I want to make sure we got the resources. And sorry, I did not get to that dashboard. We'll cover that. I'll cover that in a different video and put it on the community. Time got away. I had so much fun talking about these tours. So just some important takeaways before we kind of wrap up on some Q&A. Again, I really breezed through a lot of stuff on this session. This session was definitely not enough to cover all of what's available in guided tours. We do have this train users at scale with guided tour designer training. It is from 2020. A lot of it is still pretty relevant. It is on the classic environment, and I do plan on updating it and presenting it at Knowledge 2024. So if you are going or attending virtually, be on the lookout for a brand new updated training with workspaces and tips and tricks. But this is where a good reference if you are seeing your tours failing, kind of why, what things can you do, where you should really kind of put those call outs, how you deal with like collapsed elements and things like that. This was actually created by our custom training team. So we have a team here that creates custom training for customers. So they create the training on how to build guided tours. We have teams that build guided tours, and they really took a lot of their best practices and all that experience and put it into this training. So this is a really great one to take a look at. And then guided tour resources, again, that training, and then the admin experience product hub. So we have resources on guided tours, guided setup, help center, admin center. It is all there in the admin experience products hub. So hopefully if you're here, you've navigated to the next experience one. So go ahead and check out the admin experience one. It's good as well. And then let's go ahead, and I do want to leave a few more minutes for Q&A before we get to the general housekeeping wrap-up slides. But I will mention I have a nice little QR code here for any kind of feedback that you might have. So I do have some questions that I'm kind of trying to get information on for enhancements, but also any kind of general feedback that you might have in guided tours during this session. Feel free to go ahead and use that QR code, and let me drop this into the chat too. And this is secure. It's just going to me. It's not public facing, and you don't have to leave any identifiable information. Just trying to get some of these questions answered about guided tours with this. So I dropped that in the chat. Let's go ahead and see if we have any outstanding Q&A.
I think we just have the one, which is what accessibility is built into guided setups? Do you know how it works with a screen reader?
Guided setups, that I would have to probably refer you to the product documentation on guided setups. That one really is kind of apart from guided tours itself. If you're looking for accessibility on guided tours, it is within that product documentation. Also, good thing to kind of keep in mind when you're designing guided tours is the accessibility and how a user would use like a screen reader to kind of tab through all of your different call outs and what order they're in. But definitely check out that product documentation for that accessibility information.
And I think that's it for questions.
Okay. Well, got about 5 minutes left, so I will go ahead and let you do the overall Academy housekeeping wrap up.
Awesome. So thank you all so very much. And thank you so much, Ashley. I learned a whole lot about guided tours. It was something that I ended up missing being a portal developer. I just never was in this UI. So thank you so much. That was really awesome. If you want to learn more about Next Experience in general, we have a Next Experience community on the community site, where we also have the Next Experience Center of Excellence. And I am going to post my little short link here. And then when I'm done talking, I'm going to post the longer link for those of us who have very restrictive IT departments that don't let you have your own, that don't let little shortcuts work. Here is a great resource and repository for all the information and stuff that my team works on. Ignore the events list that lists the academies. I totally haven't updated it for November yet, but that's okay because the link there will take you to the longer list of events for academies, and that is updated. That's where you're going to be able to find the recording for this video posted within the next week. And it'll also have the slides and the Q&A from the session. We've also got some Next Experience and UI Builder courses on Now Learning, and the Next Experience YouTube playlist, which you can also find from the Academy's community post. That is going to be where you can find all of our historical academies that we've done for Next Experience. And we've also got, so academies, our Next Experience Academy is on the third Wednesday of every month, except December. Now, we also have another, a little bit more in-depth, more technical live stream that we do twice a month. On this month, we're doing it tomorrow, the 16th, and on the 28th of November at 4 p.m. Eastern, and that's on the Developer Advocates YouTube channel. It's called UI Builder Live. It is a really fun, more technical take on learning UI Builder together, where we try to make something happen. It's not as well put together as the academies are. It's a lot more kind of see what we can do and hope it works type vibes, like real development. So if you're interested in a more technical deep dive, it's also a great way for beginners to start getting immersed in UI Builder. Definitely come check that out. You can find links to that in our community Center of Excellence as well. And I think we're ready for the next slide. Join future webinars and meetups. Live on ServiceNow is a whole series of events that are all pretty much academy sessions. So you can use this QR code here to learn more about it, or we have the next slide that has links to all of the ones that you can go to directly using the SN Works short link. We've got Platform Academy, which Ashley frequents. She was talking about Lisa earlier. That's where you'll find them. And then you've, of course, got our Next Experience Academy. Thank you all so very much for joining us today. And we won't see you next month. We'll see you on January 17th at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.